Welcome to another episode of ARTdustry, where art meets industry. We are your hosts, Rachelle Etienne-Robinson and Stan Substantial Robinson.
Peace, everyone. Welcome to another episode of ARTdustry, where art meets industry. We are your hosts, Rachelle Etienne-Robinson, and Hubs over here, Substantial.
Peace.
Today's guest we're so honored to have him. He is an audio creative. He's an audio production professor, as well as sound designer and audio engineer. Please welcome our special friend, Mr. Kyle Murdock. Kyle, please.
No. Yeah, thank you all for having me. It's been awesome. And full disclosure, I was saying before we started the record that my audio might sound a little subpar. I just got this new setup and obviously didn't do a good job testing it, but thankfully I got a backup mic, and regardless, we're gonna have a good conversation.
We're gonna have a great time. We're gonna have a great time. They know your skills, man. And if they don't know, they learn today.
Look. So for those who are just tuning in, so pre-show, we're catching up. And I'm like showing them things in the studio. So when you saw the crazy lighting in the background, it was nothing that was related to the show. It was a conversation that I just forgot that. Yeah. So I just wanted to point that out in case someone was like, what is
going on?
What is happening today?
Well, welcome everyone, and welcome to another episode of ARTdustry. As we said, Kyle Murdock is here with us today.
Yes, indeed.
And we are going to talk about his creative journey and what a journey it has been. We've, all of us, as we said, all of us have been experiencing some interesting times.
Yes.
And, but staying busy at the same time. I mean, full disclosure, like when we decided on doing this show, this podcast, we referred to Mr. Murdock, Professor. We checked in with the professor and asked him, for some advice and some resources, and he was more than helpful. So we are so happy to have him on the show today.
Yeah, hey, anytime. I mean, we go back. I've been a fan of Stan stuff we're peers. So even though I didn't know Stan really until almost a decade ago, I knew of his music, and he's a good. And there's so many parallels. Family dude who's just doing music. So yeah, anything y'all need, I got you. Not a problem.
We appreciate you, man.
That.
I was just telling her earlier how far we go back.
Yeah.
I was like. Hit me up. I think the first time we got in contact with each other, I was still actually living in Brooklyn, New York.
That's crazy.
First reached out, so that was like at least 2006, something like that.
Yeah, I remember. Well, yeah, it might have been through MySpace, which is probably accurate.
Oh wow, further back.
Take it back.
And I got a record, one of your records in the mail from Q&5 at the time. Yeah, was it Sacrifice? Like, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, because I was like, yo, who is this black dude doing the Black Samurai thing on the front, like looking like he about to commit seppuku with the, you know what I mean?
Mountain pen.
Right.
But then, I found out your connection to Ninja Bass and everything. It was, so I was a fan, and then I knew Algorithm, who was producing with you and stuff. So yeah, it's a small world. DC is not that big, so
yeah,
it's not. So let's take it back. So you have been obviously in the industry for quite some time. This has been a career that you continue to develop. But when was the first time that you were exposed to the arts?
Oh man, I guess even like a lot of people like growing up, my just like being around my family, and then they were always playing like certain records and stuff. And my uncle was he was kind of a local celebrity DJ. He started the Quiet Storm format on WHUR back in the 70s. So if you ever see Melvin Lindsay, that's my uncle. So
wow.
I grew up, I wanted to be like him. Like I was like, I want to be like my uncle. He seems cool. He's on like radio. He was on BET with Donnie Simpson way early in the game. And people always said I kind of favored him. So I was like, yeah, I want to be like my uncle. I want to be in the arts and stuff. But obviously, my path took me down as opposed to being in front of the microphone. I got really into the technical side, so I was behind the mic. And then, as opposed to my uncle, who grew up listening to a lot of soul, hip hop was kind of my thing. So, that just translated. Being in college, just like a lot of people just doing demos and trying to be like the fifth member of a Tribe Called Quest. I always, that was like a dream. It just stood into making demos and, you know, just doing music. And here we are 20 something years later, which is crazy. So.
And what's great about it too is I don't think people realize how instrumental, how essential rather, those in engineering are. Because, you know, when you hear music on the radio, they're hearing the vocalist or the, you know, they might hear the beat, but they don't know about all the background to get to this point, to show, you know, how the sound, how you hear it in your ear, in your radio, in your speaker, all was done by somebody, was created by someone. And
it was definitely, you know, like, yeah, studying that stuff, like reading the back in the day when you used to buy CDs and buy albums and reading the liner notes and seeing who engineered what. Like, you used to see like a lot of on the Roots and Tribe Called Quest, Bob Power, this white guy, hippie dude from like, who's in his 60s, used to be the one engineering all this great hip hop and neo soul. And I was like,
nice.
Wow, it's just crazy to think, like, you know, without him and then hearing about these guys talk about him, I was like, your favorite record wouldn't have sounded like your favorite record. So.
Right.
Absolutely.
It's very important. Speaking of style, so how would you say, what contributed to your unique style? I mean, because I know you've produced for others. Like, how would you say you developed that?
I always say my style is, it's corny to say, but it's like neo-sonic. I was like new sound, like I was just trying to be different. But it really is the idea of just taking something that you've heard and maybe putting a spin on it. And I'm really into like a lot of like not spacey, but kind of like production. Those have been like the people I like a lot. Like growing up, my favorite producers were like DJ Spinner, and I really like Nicolay and like people like that. And even the jazz I listened to wasn't like the straight ahead bop like Miles Davis and Coltrane. I was listening to a lot of Return to Forever and just like Orchestra, Vangelis, like people who are like prog rock and, you know, more synthesized stuff, but jazzy. And I think that just kind of like spilled into because I was sampling a lot of that stuff, and then I just got into that. I'm really into the idea of like space. And, you know, but it's all hip hop. Like, I feel like it gotta hopefully knock, you know what I mean? So, yeah.
You grew up in the DMV, right?
Oh, yeah. I'm DC. DC.
Yeah. So with DC being with the soundscapes that you were exposed to between the metro and just, you know, the city, the hustle and bustle of the city, how much would you say has the environment contributed to or inspired you?
More of the people than I guess the sound too, because it's nothing like even up until last year before COVID just shut the world down. Like I really thrive on my day-to-day was always like on the metro, like going to Howard and working there and then going to teach at American or do my master's stuff and then going to Cal. I was all over the DMV at certain points. So I like the hustle and bustle of the DMV. Obviously, if you listen to my stuff, you don't hear really like go-go stuff. I like go-go. I went to some high school with a couple guys in this group who were called the Hucklebucks way back in the day. Yeah. But so, I mean, and obviously being from DC, you know the importance of Chuck Brown and Soul Searchers and all that stuff, how that came about. But I would say it's been more of the people, like when I met West W. Ellington Felton and Raheem and Raw Poetic, who I've been working with as Panacea, like those people and like that sound, I guess, has been like, and maybe like the indie band scene has been more of an influence because I saw that was like a big thriving thing here, you know?
Yeah. Well, that's great. Because I know you mentioned, you know, with Raheem, you know, being from DC, you've worked with quite a few folks. And then let's talk about your experience with Rawkus Records as well.
Oh God, yeah. I only laugh because it's like I tell people, I was like, you know, not like that adage, be careful what you wish for. But I mean, at the same time, my goal was always, Stan, I'm sure you can attest to this too. Like you have by a certain age, this is what I'm gonna do. So for me, it was like, okay, by the time I'm 25, I'm gonna be signed to somewhere. I'm gonna be doing music. And the Rawkus thing happened right when I turned, actually, I was like 25 going on to 26. But I was so ecstatic because I grew up in high school and college listening and buying like Black on Both Sides and Pharoah Monch's album and Black Star. I mean, like, so to be signed to Rawkus and to be one of the groups that was supposed to usher in the second wave of Rawkus,
right.
This is like amazing to me. Like I was saying, I don't care how much money we have to give up. Like to have that record, that razor blade on the back of my records was so cool until it happened. And I was like, oh, we got a really bad deal. Like, you know what I'm saying? So, but I don't take it for granted. It looks great on the resume. I can say we have signed a Rawkus and met a lot of the people who were on Rawkus at the time, like the OG artists from doing radio. And no, I wasn't the only one from talking to them. They're like, don't worry about it. Like, we didn't really have the greatest time in hindsight either at Rawkus. But I don't take it for granted. It's part of my story, so it is what it is, you know?
Right. Yeah, kind of moving on to some of the other folks that you collaborated with. You know, you already mentioned, I know you were talking about Raw Poetic.
Right.
And Mega Ran, man. Let's dive. How did you like connect with these brothers? And you know, and I'm gonna throw up some cover art that maybe you recognize, man.
Okay.
Deep into that.
Well, I guess it's the funny thing about Raw Poetic and Mega Ran is that both of them are from almost the same section of Philly, which is kind of ironic. I was like, damn, there must be something in the water because I believe they're from the same area that Black Thought is from. And I was like, no, by no means. I don't want to blow up whatever and say Raw Poetic and Mega Ran are on the level. But in my eyes, they're like two of my favorite MCs. And I was like, they come from a long cloth of dope Philly MCs. Yeah. So the way I met Raw Poetic was through a homie of mine. I was working at XM Radio and I was producing music like more neo soul stuff for Raheem and West Ellington. Felton, and I was like, yo, I want to do more hip hop stuff. So my boy Corey KB was like, yo, my roommate raps. He's in a band, and he's oh my god, he's looking to do some music. So he put me in contact with Jason Raw Poetic, and I gave Jason a beat CD. And it's funny because I gave him what I thought he'd like, and then the 10th track I put on there, I'll never forget. I was like, I'm just gonna do the style I like. And ironically, the one track that he really liked, which became like the first song we ever did, Bird Feather, was the track that like he gravitated to the most. And then I was like, wow, this dude is a little different. Like he wants to try some different stuff. So he's the one who kind of pushed me sonically to try a lot of the crazy stuff I tried. And the album you have up is actually the last album we did in 2010. We did our 12-step program. Shout out to my homie Rodrigo Pradell, did the art for that, and he actually did the art that's hanging behind me too. It's out there, like. But I wanted Panacea to kind of be that way. I want Panacea is like just as much influenced by like the native tongues as it is by video games and like Final Fantasy. Matter of fact, that was the MySpace catchphrase. It's like when Final Fantasy meets the Tribe Called Quest, which I'm sure a lot of people are like, what the F is this? Like. Right. But I mean, it was just different, you know what I mean? It definitely didn't sound like DC. But you know, for those who rock with it, you know, they know, and I appreciate those who did, you know. Yeah. So. And then Mega Ran, same thing. I met him working at XM Radio. Just like I got your music stand. He sent me one of his records he was doing at the time called The Call, and he also sent his Mega Ran album. And to be honest with you, it could have been a 50-50 thing because when I first saw the cover to the Mega Ran album, I'm like, yo, who is this black dude who took the iconic Mega Man character and made him black? Like that joint was about to become a coaster. But I just so happened to listen to it on my way home, and I was like, yo, this is so ill. So yeah, we did, after 2 years of kind of talking through the internet and sending music, in 2010 we released Forever Famicom. And yeah, man, like Raheem has become one of my best friends, like frequent collaborator. I know you and him have now, like, you know, collaborated, and he's just a good dude. When you meet good people, you just got to keep them in your circle. So,
yeah, for sure, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So, that's crazy. Seeing these is crazy. I feel old just seeing something. Like both of these albums came out in 2010. I'm like, damn, people are like, yo, you haven't done anything else? I'm like, no, I have, but it just so happens those are like some of the more talked about records.
Yeah, those are iconic records, man. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, you know, when when we're talking about you, I like basically I said to Rachelle earlier, I was like, you know, there's no way to have a conversation with you without bringing up those two records.
Right.
Like it's like talking with me and then not talking about Nujabes for at least a few minutes, right?
Right.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, and so I was telling Shell, part of what brought me to you to master one of the Bop Alloy records was the 12-step program, and it was Odyssey, and I was working on Home Is Where the Art Is, and we were talking about who we were going to get to master, and you know, he was or who was mastering some of his stuff and what he was thinking about, and he mentioned you, and I was like, oh, I know Kyle, you know what I mean, I know K Murdock, you know, and so
that's crazy. I never knew that. That's funny.
Yeah. And so when he mentioned that, like I can't remember if I don't think we ended up using you for that record, but I knew I was like, look, whether we use them or not for this, I got plenty of work. You know,
right.
So you know, I knew I wanted
to. Small world, man.
Yeah.
To Amir, man, I got some funny stories. Like I just remember, I mean, before he was, you know, I mean, shout out to Odyssey. It's amazing to see his journey. But I remember him like coming home from work at XM, and he was good friends with Marshall Law, who was also in Low Budget, and was my roommate at the time. And Odyssey would be over my house playing my PlayStation. Like he's a big gamer. So yeah, shout out to Amir, man. That's dope.
Yeah, man.
It's a small, DMV really does support once you know one. So.
Yep, for sure.
You know, but speaking of which, so being raised in DMV, but you went to school, you went to Howard. You didn't want to go away, or was Howard something you always?
Yeah, well, it's funny about Howard because my mom went there, my dad went there, mad people in my family. So it was kind of like, not like, yo, you going to Howard, but also my mom was, when she graduated from Howard, she started working at Howard. So at that point, when I came, she was already like 15 or 20 years into working there. And so she was like, you can come to Howard. All I had to pay was enrollment. I didn't have to pay any, like, so that was another reason I went. Like,
yeah,
I didn't have to worry about student loans being buried in that for years. Right. So I went and got a great education, which I think also kind of lit the fire under my butt to be like, okay, I'm majoring in communications. And that's one of those, like, you know, like I would meet people on the football team is like, yeah, I'm majoring in communications, but I'm really trying to get to the league, dog.
Right.
But for me, I was like, well, I ain't going into no league unless it's a league of engineers. So I got to get a job. Like,
right.
So the onus was on me to really take my time at Howard and really be serious. And that's why I was interning everywhere. I worked at WPGC, WHUR, WPFW. I mean, I was like damn near, not to be cliche with it, but I had some Jamaican in me. You know what I mean? I some West.
You got 3 jobs.
Yeah, I got 3 jobs. People used to laugh and say that about me. There was a guy who's actually from Guyana. He used to be like, "Man, how many jobs you got, boy?" Like, and I was like, "Man, I'm just trying to like not live at my mom's house." Like I thought, you know? Right. So yeah, it's funny. That's funny.
Yeah. How was that program? How was it being? I mean, granted, with the historical relevance and having the legacy with both of your parents being there, how was your experience?
It was awesome. I mean, for me, it was a little personal just because, like I said, I wanted to emulate my uncle who also went to Howard and started the Quiet Storm line. He was a student, so I felt like a little bit of like, okay, I need to. Obviously, I knew I wasn't going to go and try to emulate and like create a new format because by then there was already hip hop formats. Right. But like, I really wanted to be on the radio, and I definitely remember one of the kind of like life-changing conversations I had. I was working at WPGC. I was interning for Big Tigger as his like, I was basically his production person the last 2 years, and I had an opportunity to record a demo, like an on-air, what they call an air check demo of me, like, hey, this is, I don't know what I was calling myself. Hey, this is K. I don't think I was K Murdock. I was like, hey, this is Kyle Murdock. You're listening to whatever. So I was like introing and what they call backselling or talking about songs, like acting like I was on the radio. And I played with the program director of the show, and he was like, I'll never forget this. He looked at me, he was like, you know what? You're not your uncle. He was like, I think you need to just stay in production. He was like, like, kind of just like, it was almost like it could have killed my dreams. I was like, yo, like I spent a lot of time doing this demo. And for you to just straight up say, like, you're not your uncle, I was like, damn, that's like cold-hearted, man. But I just took it as motivation. And like I said, I kind of started getting more into the production side. But yeah, being at Howard was awesome. I wouldn't have got my job at XM without being at Howard, because my teacher made for one of our final projects like a field goal trip. She was like, you all been reading about them building satellite radio stations the last year. You know they're building one that's in walking distance to Howard down on Eckington Street. So she was like, matter of fact, for you an assignment, I want everyone in this class to march down to XM and apply for internship. So like of the first 20 interns at XM Radio, 15 of them were all in my advanced radio production class.
That's great.
We all got hired, which is crazy. So yeah.
That's awesome.
That's dope. That's a dope story.
Yeah,
man. And you know, just going back to you know, your educational experience, since you just mentioned it, you know, congrats on getting your master's for audio technology from American University. It's super dope, man. I just wanted to really hear from you and obviously share this with the listeners. Like, how important has education been to your musical journey? And how do you feel like it shaped you creatively versus professionally?
It's been like germane, man, in the sense of like I've learned so much, even just from doing this course, because everyone's like, oh man, it's gonna be a layup for you. Like, you do this stuff already. Like, even the teachers I had at American were like, what am I going to teach you that you don't know? And I was like, well, look at this. And like this was like, one, I'm paying for this, so I'm like, I'm gonna learn something.
Right.
On top of that, I was like, I have my ways of doing stuff, and it's awesome to see other people like how they approach doing stuff that's like simple stuff like tracking a vocal, mixing a record, setting up a studio. I was like, I have my ways of doing stuff that maybe after I look at the way you do stuff, I'm like, man, like I could have been doing it a lot more streamlined all these years. So, you know, you can never stop learning. Even teaching, like, tell people, I was like, I've learned so much from like the students who come in my class, like not only like the cool slang, but I mean just like interesting ways that they DIY and approach stuff that like when I teach them, it's the same thing. It's like, man, I never knew there was a better way to do this, but thanks for showing me. And I was like, man, I never knew there was another way to do this. Like, thank you for showing me too. So I think whether it be a Howard, whether it be an American, like I'm always looking like a sponge. Like it's kind of like sampling. Like I'm always sampling other people's stuff.
Right.
You know, and then taking that and putting it in my toolbox of like stuff I can use to create. So I definitely think it's helped me professionally, because now with the masters I can command a couple more $1,000, you know what I mean, if I was teaching anywhere. And then personally and creatively, it's definitely helped me because now I know more hacks and ways to like get from A to B or A to Z quicker because of the information I've been able to glean from like taking these classes. So it's been awesome, man. I'm very thankful for the opportunities.
Yeah. How would you say being a student helped you be a better professor as well? Because you say you taught at Howard. Right.
Patience. I learned a lot of patience. I learned, especially over the last like 2 semesters with it all being online, I was teaching and I was taking classes. So to be honest with you, there were classes I was taking from people and I was like, yo, I need to employ that strategy in my own teaching. So sometimes I would just do that. Like I would see, oh, okay, they're using this like app and stuff. And like, I'm like attentively taking notes, and sometimes not just on what they're teaching, but how they're teaching it, and saying how can I employ that again, using that whole hip hop sampling mentality. How can I sample that and make it my own? But also, I'm like any good person who does hip hop, you gotta attribute and show props. So I don't act like I just created this stuff. I'm like, someone asked me, I'm like, I learned this from so and so. If you really want to know more, you need to talk to the original OG author of this. So I'll do, whether it be an artist or a teacher, I do the same thing. So yeah.
What would you say has been throughout your career? What would you say has been the most challenging for you?
I guess like learning when to learning when to say no, because I'm the type to be like, I want to do it all. Like, and I think learning when it's like I can't do it all. So I'm like, now I'm very one track minded in the sense of like, if I'm doing one project, I'm only doing one project. But I always felt like, man, I'm gonna miss out on the opportunity. And especially if it's something I'm like, I kind of know how to do it, but man, it says a lot that the person is thinking of me. So I'm gonna say yes. And then I'm gonna go and study my, wet off to find out how to really do it. But in the meantime, sometimes I've done that and I feel like I've done it, but I've been burned out, or I did it and I'm like, man, I could have done it a lot better if I just probably said no and just waited on another opportunity to come around, because I feel like I didn't give it my all, or like it burnt me out to the point I'm like, man, I just need to chill for a while and not do anything. So I think for me, it was just learning how to pace myself. And again, just like learning how to take stuff in moderation, So I guess it's a good problem, but you're only human, man. So I just tell people, it's like, take your time with stuff and just know your limits,
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're also, as a family man, you're a husband.
On top of that, right? So
on top of all,
my wife is super supportive. Shout out to my wife Jenna. She's like super supportive. I got the best family. I mean, I know y'all know how it goes. You gotta be able to have each other's backs. You gotta be able to support one another. So I feel like now my wife has been so supportive of me putting what I wanted to do at the forefront. Like, I'm always asking her, I'm like, what do you want to do? Like, what can I do to support you the way that you always have supported me? So because I think that's just, you can't always have one person in front. You need, if the whole idea is like to work and walk in lockstep. You got to be able to, like, sometimes you're in the front, sometimes you're in the back, but no matter what, like, it should always be equilibrium, So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. See, so listen, right? Put you on. So I'm trying to start this club for house husbands, right? You know what I'm saying? So listen, yeah, I'm that.
Okay, I believe
here. This one here, like she's cooking up. She just started. So look, we'll go ahead and say it on the show, but she just started classes for NYU film school and stuff. And so like, she's working on a lot of stuff, and it's I have no doubt.
Stan has aspirations.
Oh yeah, I'm trying to be home with these babies. You know what I'm saying?
You need to start. I'm cool.
Listen, when they get to a certain point or whatever, and then she's like, all right, babe, I need some music for the joint. I'm like, okay, cool. Then I get a little sitter for then, so I can walk. But then I go right back to the ladies, B. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to chill, bro. So look, you and me, you know what I'm saying? Look, we go ahead, invest that time and energy. Let them do what they gotta do, and we can kick it, son.
Yeah, I'm with it. Women are so better juggling stuff. I don't know how the hell I got through the last year, because I'm, like I said, I can do one thing and I do it really good. But when people are like even talking to me when I'm doing stuff, I'm like, a lot of times I can't give it my focus.
Right.
So I always like defer mad props to usually women, because when I'm like, how is she doing all this? My wife will be, juggling all this stuff and doing everything well. And then if she forgets one thing, she like is really hard on herself. I'm like, Jenna, do you know what you just did? Like, this house burned down. These kids would be emaciated and starving. Like, I don't know, how the hell do you do this? Like,
yeah, man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
the superheroes, man. Look, we married up, bro. So listen.
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
So speaking of which, so as a girl dad, how has that been? How has that experience as of fatherhood really sort of guided your steps? How is it different?
Man, it's the most important. I realized the most important job I have. I mean, obviously, gotta be a provider and all that stuff, but like, it's just being there and just like whatever, and being supportive. Like, I luckily grew up with like my mom, because of my uncle, went and did the arts. Like, so me saying, oh, I want to be a radio person, my mom was like, okay, like, your uncle did it and he set a precedent. So I feel like, I always tell my wife, I was like, our daughters can say they want to do anything except be like assassins, which is a bad joke, a bad dad joke. Why would you even say that? I was like, it's just a joke. But I was like, you gotta be supportive. She's like, what if they want it? And I was like, I'm Jenna. It's not that serious. It's a bad dad joke. So I'm glad you all are kind of laughing, even if it is like this dude is horrible.
Yeah, right. I got it.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So, but yeah, I just want to be there for them the way that like my mom was there for me. Like, you know what I'm saying? And my father wasn't always there, but even now, like he's like my relationship with him is so good that, and he's very honest. He's like, man, I look at you and the way you're doing it is definitely not the way I did it. But he's like, the way you're doing it is the way like you need to do it. So he's like, if you learn anything from me, learn the way you do not do it. Like, so he's very encouraging, and he, you know, I think the proof is when I look at my daughters, they seem to be thriving, they're happy, and that's all I can ask for is that they're happy. And again, I'm with them whatever they want to do. So my oldest wants to be right now. She wants to be like Mae Jemison. She wants to be she's really into STEM and STEAM and stuff, and she wants to be like a ballerina / astronaut. And my youngest is kind of taking a part of me. She's really into video games, which I'm like, oh God, at 4 years old, she's like really legit into games. And I'm proud of her, but I'm also kind of nervous because I know how it was when I locked in on video games. Like, so, you know, it's just funny. But I mean, that's just part of being a parent. Like, yeah. You know, and y'all know, like raising 2 girls, it ain't no joke. And, you know, yeah, you know, so my oldest isn't quite where your oldest is yet, but I'm definitely like any words of wisdom and gems you drop, trust me, I'm there to pick them up because I know you know as a person who's lived the experience, you know.
Yeah, man. And how old is your oldest?
Stella will be 7. She was born on New Year's Eve, and my young Sybil will be 5 on September 14th. So. Yeah, when we had Stella, the nurse thought it was funny to say, she was like, well, guys, guess you made that tax break. And we're like, tax break? Like, I get it, but I was like, man, I'm just happy she's healthy and here.
Right.
Yeah, but I mean, I was like, at the same time, I was like, yeah, I guess we did make it.
Yeah.
Right.
Winning.
Yeah.
That is hilarious. Oh, my goodness. So we're going to transition a bit because you recently were appointed a new position to add to your your catalog, your many hats.
All the hats.
You are now working with Vice Media. Tell us about that. How did that come about? What are you doing for them?
So ironically, right after, maybe a year after I applied to into this program at American University, I was really hell bent. Like, the path I saw myself was like, I was at Howard, I was working in this like faculty administrative hybrid position the last 5 years, where I basically ran the Student Technology Center for the School of Communications, which is the school I was in. But I also, part of my job was I was to teach 2 classes a semester. So I taught either podcasting or audio engineering. So I was like, well, if I want to teach and be beyond my position, I'm going to need to get a master's. And so ironically, after I entered the program, people started approaching me for like, you know, freelance jobs. And one of the jobs I had, I got on this crazy listserv of like people in radio and podcasting. And one day as I'm looking at the listserv, it's like postings and it's like Vice Media is building an audio team and looking to hire sound designers. And I was like, wow, Vice, I love Vice. Like they're reporting and everything. So cool. Like I love the whole, you know, the vibe of Vice and everything. So I just applied on a lark. And then my wife was like, yo, you need to utilize your LinkedIn. So she was like, you probably know some people at Vice. So I didn't know anyone directly at Vice, but I had friends who were really close friends with like certain people in positions. So I used LinkedIn and I messaged certain people. And I was like, hey man, I did apply formally for the position, but also just letting you know, like this is what I do. You can check my LinkedIn profile. And then the head of the audio department, shout out to Kate Osborne is her name. She emailed me and was just like, yo, like, you know, like, I'm glad you went through the formalities. I need you to do that. But like, we definitely have, you know, earmarked your resume. And, you know, we'll be in touch. And, you know, you never know how that's going to happen. But, yeah, come the end of summer last year, I got hired. Like, I went through 3 rounds of interviews, and they hired me. And I was like, wow. And it's funny because I've never met in person anybody on my team. They're like in Chicago, LA, a lot of people in Brooklyn where Vice is headquartered. But it's been for me a dream gig because, you know, like part of my job as a sound designer is everything from mixing episodes to doing music to creating like sound scenes for media on Vice. And I'm like, yo, this is like what I've been doing the last 20 years. So it's a dream situation. It's definitely one I'm like, I do not plan on leaving anytime soon. So yeah, I tell people, I was like, just because I'm a master's, it's more of a back pocket thing. But when I segue into that, I'm just thinking for the future. But for now, I'm definitely at Vice and really excited about, you know, the stuff that I get to do there. It's been awesome.
That's awesome. I mean, we're fans of Vice Media and Vice News and their reporting as well. Great. So when we heard about that, I was like, yes.
And, you know, one of the cool things is I get to be there and like act as a pipeline now between like HBCUs like Howard and Vice. I'm like, because one of the things, even still at Vice, like on my team, there's a lot of people of color, a lot of Black women doing big things, but I'm the only Black male. And I'm like, it's important when I go back and teach or go to HBCUs to be like, yo, do you want to work at Vice? There are people already there who look like us. And I think I always say this analogy. It's like when people saw Obama be president, it's like, oh, that's like something attainable now.
Right.
Yeah.
So even if you see me and you're like, well, Professor Murdock or whatever, you know, like he's all right, but he's there. So if he can get in, I can get in. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, you know, so yeah, I'm that's what I want to do is like, how can I leverage my role now to get other people to be at the table? So, because I ain't gonna be doing this forever. So I want to try to set up the next generation.
Yeah. And again, you know, I can't emphasize enough the importance of your role, because just like, for instance, when people listen to music on the radio or wherever, you know, or their streaming platform, just like when you watch film, whether it's a TV show, it's a feature film, like imagine a film without music.
Oh man, it was yeah. It's like people don't understand that the whole multimedia experience. Like if your audio is trash, I don't care how good your visuals are. I mean, a lot of times people are more inclined to deal with bad audio. But if your audio is gold, I've seen great audio carry films that weren't shot or edited really great, but it's really not the same on the other end. So I think that's awesome. I mean, you said you're getting what is going to be your focus in film school? So in film right now, I love documentaries. Documentaries has always been my favorite. Screenwriting. So I've been doing both of those. Wow. Okay. And look, that's what I'm saying. How awesome is this? If you need for scoring or music, come on. Yeah. Like y'all almost
boy for at least for a few more years. You know what I'm saying? So listen, man. No, man, y'all let me say this, and I said this to you all. One, I think y'all have great together. Like your voices are awesome. So and then obviously on top of that, from noticing how you all move as a unit, I think you all set like. It's like, I know people probably corny saying that, but like those are goals, couples goals, man. I think that's so cool that you all work together and like you can tell beyond being in a relationship, y'all are friends. And I just think that's awesome and we need to see more of that. So like, thank you, brother. Appreciate it. Yeah. But it's also a testament to the people that we surround ourselves with, because we always say, we're not wearing our t-shirts today, but we have a t-shirt that says dope. Yeah. Because it's true. Like, I mean, even with this platform as a podcast, everyone we've interviewed are people that we're friends with, especially because of the pandemic and we can't physically be in the same space. This allowed us an opportunity to really, really get to know have friends, you have acquaintances, you have people but you really don't know their journey. And so having this opportunity to do that has been just instrumental. Yeah. And I feel like it's important. One of the things I teach at, like when I'm doing classes at Omega School, one of the things that I always talk about, oftentimes people, when they're trying to quote unquote get on, they always are looking outside of their network. Right. They always are looking at people who they have no relationship with whatsoever, and just begging them to put them on, begging them to get them in the door, this, that, and the third, instead of looking within and looking around, like in their immediate circle. And
like your LinkedIn.
Yeah, right. And so so that's what we try to do with this platform. Like, you know, like when people are looking at guests like you, like, oh man, it's cool you had him on. Or like people like when we had a verbal on from M Flow.
Right.
You know, and I've known that brother 20 plus years.
He was like, yeah, back on the day thinking of your album. Like
yeah. So you know, like looking to those people closest to us to you know, lift each other up, promote what folks are doing, work together to build things,
right.
You know. And I mean, I think we talk about community all the time and we talk about unity, but that's one of the easiest ways to do it, is just looking at that man or woman like right next to you and building something with them, which is exactly what we're doing with our company, this podcast and all of that, you know. And so man,
we'll keep at. We need more of it. And I mean, like, it's so many people who always say stuff, but one thing I can say about you all is that you all do it. And I think at this point in time, like, you know, you can talk all you want, but you just gotta do it. Like even myself, that's why I signed up and did a consultation, because I was like, dude, you know, Stan is a peer, but look where he is and has done. I was like, I can learn from you all, so that's why I signed up. I was like, teach me some new stuff. And I feel like some people just won't swallow their pride, even if they see people as like peers and say, man, whatever, like that's not what. And I'm like, dude, you can learn from anybody. You know what I mean? So anyway,
let that ego come in. But it's funny, Stan had a quote that you had actually said about.
Yeah.
What?
Right. So
you mentioned a little bit briefly about it, about, you know, music. You know, it's like, you know, your audio, if it doesn't start from a good place. But I'll let Stan.
Sure. So yeah, man. So back when we were working, for those listening, we were working on. It was me and Marcus D. We were working on the R&R remixes and revisions, right? K Murdock had a remix on there, but we also hired him to master the record. And so and you know, and when he finished doing the amazing job that we knew he would do, you know, we thanked him. We were like, man, you know, thank you so much, bro. Appreciate it, man. Sounds great. And then he was like, well, man, you know, it's easy to do when you're working with good quality already. Right. You know, he's like, you know, but other people, they, you know, they want me to polish it. And he's like, I can shine it up, but it's still going to be shit.
But it's so funny that, But the term I learned in college was GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. I'm like, and like, there's no audio wizardry, level of audio wizardry, at least that I know of, and I know of a lot, that can make it sound like turn shit, you know, into a diamond. I mean, at this point, so I mean, like, yeah, like you all's mixes from Marcus, everything sounded so good. It wasn't like mastering was like awesome, because it was like, man, the mixes were great, like, you know what I'm saying? So whereas I've had people who like even send me like MP3s, which is the first no. I was like, why would you send me a complete file? Like, but that's just, anyway, I don't want to turn this into like audio geeks.
But no, because
we're here to talk about what you do. That's cool.
Right. Speaking of which, so what software? What's your go-to software?
Oh man, I've been using Pro Tools since 1999. So like, yeah, like I've been using Pro Tools for 22 years, 23 years. So that, and for a lot of what I do on Vice, because a lot of times, especially now that everyone is like at home or recording, there's a lot of times the audio it might be too noisy. It might have artifacts that need to clean out. So there's a program called Isotope, IZOTOPE-RX, which is made for audio restoration and cleanup, that I use like religiously. So I would say between Pro Tools, that, and then I use the Fab Filter is a company that makes a lot of plugins. I use like pretty much their suite of plugins. They're expensive, but they're like awesome, because they do the job, but they also, I'm a visual person, and I need to be able to, I don't want to just see knobs and faders. I need to see some kind of like graphic equalization, or just, like, I think that translates better than when I'm like, especially when I'm teaching and I'm like, oh, I see, I cut this and then I did that. They're like, what? And I'm like, well, let me just show you. And then I raise it up on the screen. They're like, oh, got it. Like, that makes more sense. So I learned that way. And I figure now, especially teaching online, like, that's just the best way. So yeah, but Pro Tools is my DAW, digital audio workstation of choice. and has been for years. But yeah.
I just walked away from Pro Tools, man.
So what do you use?
Yeah, it's funny. I've been using Pro Tools almost about as long as you have, right? Maybe I'm trying to think of where we were living. So maybe like I want to say maybe 2 years after you, right?
Okay.
But prior, but now, because I was doing the bulk of my production in GarageBand, and
Right.
everyone was just like, "Yo, like, dude, you just got to upgrade the
Logic.
So it's a natural progression, especially with the amount of like production work I was starting to do.
Man.
Huh?
No, I said, yeah, man. Logic is like, honestly, people in my ear all the time, like, yo, man, Pro Tools is awesome, but if you use like Logic and Ableton are like the ones that usually people either send me sessions from, or like when I see them making music, those are the two. So
yeah.
Use whatever you need to use.
Yeah.
Idea out, but I think
they're all just tools.
Yeah, they're all just tools, and ultimately, I think that no one can replicate for the most part what is up here. So it's just like Pete Rock said that a long time ago in an interview I did with him at XM. He was like, "We can all have the SP1200, but he was like, no one's gonna make shit like me because no one can think about how to break down." And I was like, "That's true," because even the only person I feel like I not rivals, but has a sound like Pete Rock is Cab Brown. And Cab will be like, "Yo, Pete, man," Cab talks, he's like, "Yo, Pete on the SP, man. He just Cab is awesome too." Yeah, Cab is like Cab is I love Cab, man. Cab talks.
I actually got to meet him a couple years back, and it's funny. Everybody used to say, do their own impression, and I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah.
Yo,
Kev is funny, man. Like he's low key funny. You don't like, because he's so chill and so like stoic all the time, like just a straight face. You don't see it coming, and then he just be sliding the jokes in there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, man. He's a funny dude.
What was the thing him and Cambridge? Yo, we getting cracking off. Like the way he be saying stuff. I'm like, 1 minute he's just so demure, like you said, it's stoic. Then he's like, "Yo, I'm gonna do this," and I'm like, it's just funny because Kev and I mean, on top of the fact that he's an amazing. Like I'm like, to this day, I don't know how you did those beats. Those bass lines on MPC, he showed me, but I'm like, it's amazing. So yes. Anyway,
super talented dude.
What advice would you have for, or at least, being a professor, what advice do you usually give your students who are trying to pursue, whether it's radio broadcast or being an engineer? Like, what advice? What would you say are the tools that are like?
Yeah, or music in general.
Yeah.
Okay, music. So I just say, if you really want to. Like me, I have no trained music or formal music like theory or anything. Like, man, if I played you some of my first beats, you'd be like, "Yo, get the hell out of here!" Like, it's like. But if I was still making that, I wouldn't even be talking to you all day, right? So it's like a growth thing. So prepare to put in those hours. Like people always say, Malcolm Gladwell, the 10,000 hour journey. But I mean, it's for real. Like if you really want to learn something, sit down, put in the time. Be prepared to have some failures, but learn from it. Like learn, why was this bad? Why was this whack? Like what can you do better? And then beyond that, like I think this is something that Quincy Jones said to me that actually was echoed when I met W. Ellington Felton. He was like, the first step in any artist when you sit down and try to do something is going to be you try to imitate. Then the next step is emulate. Like you want to try to do it exactly like them. Then the next step, natural progression, is innovate. Mm-hmm. So when you're at that level, and if you find yourself carving out your own sound, that's really when like it can go to a crossroads. You have some people like, oh my God, I'm creating this stuff and it sounds like awesome, and like they can take that left turn. Or then some people like, yo, this is probably not going to fly because I want to be the next Dilla, I want to be the next DJ Premier, and then they just wind up sticking to that, and I feel like they stifle themselves. Oh, yeah. So W. Ellington Felton always used to say to me, what did he say? He said, be afraid to not be you. Don't be afraid to be you. So if you find yourself carving out and being very unique, like embrace it and just like ride it. And I feel like me personally, when I met Raw Poetic, that's really when I was like, okay, I'm gonna put these crazy left field changes in my beats. And it was only because I never was good at making like the hot loops that loop around. You know what I mean? Like, so people liked it, and he started rhyming on it, and like it made me comfortable enough to be like, you know what, this is gonna be my style. And I just apply that whole idea, whether I'm producing a 30-second commercial or a 3-minute song. Like I just always like, I'm not afraid to try stuff. And I think not having formal education to a degree probably helps, because sometimes I'm like, well, I think that kind of sounds cool, but because I don't know any formal stuff, like I'm not afraid to just try it. You know what I'm saying? Whereas certain people, I've been told, like it's almost like you have governors on you, because you're like, music theory, that's not what you're supposed to do. Right. So I would never do that. But like, so anyway.
No, you're right, because I think a lot of folks are, when you're classically trained, you learn the rules, right?
Yes.
And so the arts is all about breaking the rules. Like a C is a C, a G is a G. You know what I mean? So
some of the Tennessee stuff was so like not into. Like I'm like amazed that we even got a record deal. When I listen to some of that stuff and people break down, I'm like, I'm sorry, man. Like, or like when people try to replay it, they're like, dude, like what pitch was this? Like this was like in between two notes. Like how did you make this? And I'm like, dude, I don't know. I just made it. It sounded good to me. So like,
right. I mean, that's the beauty sometimes in not having the answers.
Right.
Like, you figure it out, you explore, you go to these different places. And dude, and that's one of the things that I've admired about you your whole career, man. I still remember exactly where we were living when you first sent me beats. And I remember opening the file up and listening to everything, and I was like, yo, this dude's different. You know what I mean? And then like later on, seeing you in DC at the Red Bull beat battle. That's the one that I think Algorithm won that night. He beat Best Kept Secret. Yes. But you were in the semifinals. I can't
against Best Kept Secret.
Yeah. But like what was dope, because I think on surface level, people who would have heard your production or been familiar with your production would not have expected to see you in a beat battle.
Not highly expected.
Right, because it's because your stuff is a bit more left, right?
Right.
Left, right? But anyway,
I get it.
But I truly believe when watching that whole battle top to bottom, part of the reason why your stuff advanced as far as you did is because it was different. Everybody came, kind of going for these big beats that like boom bap or kind of slow, real. And then, and you were just like, man, here's this beat that's like 110, 120 beats. Like this, like really kind of beautiful, like ethereal type of sample in it.
Yeah, it was funny.
Yeah.
One of the dudes, I'll never forget it, when I battled him, he was like into himself, like the whole moniker. I was like, what are we shooting? Like, what was the Eminem movie that, he like would lose yourself in 8 Mile? I was like, what is 8 Mile Part 2? Because the dude looked at me and did the whole slit your throat thing. I was like, first off, this is a Red Bull beat. Like, this ain't the hood. Like, we in U Street had just started being real gentrified. I'm like, bruh, this ain't it. Like, and then I'm thinking back to you, like one of the best pieces of advice you gave me, you were like, I sent you some beats way early on. Yeah. And you were like, yo, I like it, but I need the drums to knock a little bit more. And I always took that to heart. I was like, yo, I really need to get my drums knocking. And like Kevin and all them were like that too. They're like, Kyle, we like your stuff, but you need to do this and that. So I'm like I said, I was a sponge, man. I learned, I took what people said to me and I employed that. And I, it wasn't like butthurt about it, but because I was like, yo, these are like dudes I respect. So if they say I'm gonna take it and really apply it. So thank you for that too.
And listen, man, I feel you. I think it's all of our job, right? Like we're all blessed to like hopefully get to break bread and spend some time with people who stuff we admire. And like every time I've had that opportunity to be around people who I looked up to and respected, they just always got gems. So anytime someone compliments me on my flow, instantly I'm like, man, you can thank Chip Fu from Fu Schnickens. Yeah, I can remember sitting in my manager's truck with Chip Fu because they went to high school together. and he listened to a couple of tracks from me and was like, "Here are some pointers," right?
Wow.
Like me using my singing voice a bit more. That Flo Brown, who was on the Hurricane soundtrack.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, she was the first one to point it out. Was like, "Yo, you need to sing more, yo. You need to sing more." Kai really kind of took me under his wing and was just like, "Bro, like, you know, bring those vocals up. Stop trying, you know."
Oh yeah. He would know. I mean, Kokai is massive.
Yeah, but those people, man, people like Tone Deaf and so many others, man, just so many gems. And I think we're all blessed to be around people who care enough to see the potential there and be like, "Yo, these adjustments, yo." Like, man, that's how we all grow, you know?
Exactly. You're right about that. So,
you know, now that we're, you know, fully into 2021 and seeing what the transitions that are going on in the music industry, and especially this year for so many artists, because the pandemic weren't able to tour, right? And travel in the traditional sense. Where do you see the music industry going in the future?
I mean, it's interesting because I've seen all these platforms rise from people doing stuff on Twitch. I saw now Bandcamp has like the built-in live stream, which is great. With the virtual merch table, I'm like, dude, this is awesome. You can go anywhere.
Right. I'm not again. Right.
So I think that's awesome having that option, because some things happen in life where, unfortunately, like something might happen, you might not be able to get to certain people, and now you have that option. But at the same time, I think, man, I was talking to Mega Ran about this. I was like, man, the first time, because I asked him, I was like, has anyone contacted you? He's like, we got asked about booking for a convention in December. And I was like, wow, it's just crazy to think. I told him, I was like, man, the first time I get on stage with you, I might even cry. I was like, just because, it's been not having that human contact. Like, I miss talking to people in person. As you can tell, you know, I like to talk a lot. So like whether it be teaching people, I miss that human interaction, and I think we all need it. And I'm just thankful that I've been home, somewhat accessible. Like, my wife is here, my daughter's here. Like, 'cause for those that living alone, and I talked to some people, and I'm like, as much as it looks cool, like, oh, I'm by myself, I can get so much done, you still need that interaction. So yeah, I think now it's the best of both worlds. You have, obviously, I want venues to reopen and be able to do stuff, but now it's nice to know that for your fans who you might not be able to do a West Coast run, you can do a West Coast exclusive show in Bandcamp and have the virtual merch table. Like, that's awesome. Like, so.
No, I think it's a great idea. I think having that, you know, having that option, because you have some people that will welcome to going out, and then you have some that are like, I'll pass. And then for this, you know, when you're on stage, you are receiving as much as you're giving. You know, you get energy so that you can perform. And when you don't have that, when you're looking through screens, it's not the same. But
it's kind of like you have been experimenting alone, like doing this research, hearing all of this stuff. And when you go out into the world and you're brave enough, right, to get on that stage in front of these people, like, what you're hoping to receive is confirmation, right? Like, you know, I'm trying to give you something, and I think this is something you want to receive, but you're still waiting for that confirmation. And once you get it, man, it's doesn't very few things like that feeling. You know what I mean?
Has anyone reached out to you about booking? I mean, like, I'm sure, you know, for like the fall or the winter, like doing anything in person.
Nah, not so much. Like the only folks, it's funny, people been hitting me up to teach more than anything else. And I recently just had to tell a few folks, like, I have no interest in teaching the craft side of it anymore. My focus is strictly on teaching the business, because you know, the craft itself is subjective at this point, right? I'm not going to sit up here and argue with people younger than me and try to tell them what they like is wrong, right? You know, I feel like we lose so much in that exchange. So I don't even bother entertaining it anymore. So like, but when I walk in there and talk business, I mean, regardless to them not knowing who I am, like, once they kind of see my credentials and do some research and they see what I've managed to do without being a big name, you know, they're like, yeah, okay, I'm ready to receive whatever you got to say, because I'm able to do this. be able to provide for a family of 4, and that's all, and solely doing this, yeah, there's something that I can learn from you. And so people just seem ready to receive that. Especially too, we getting older, man. So I'm up here trying to teach like 10-year-olds how to put gray hair in my face. They looking at me crazy. So you know what I mean? So yeah, man. But yeah, it's been more on the teaching side, less of the performance. There's been like a couple whispers here and there, but yeah, and I'm real, bro. I'm really good with this virtual too.
Right. So hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right?
Right.
Man, look, and so I am excited about the potential of performing on stage again. But yeah, I'm good.
See, I think that's awesome because now you can say, hey, you know what are you gonna do to get me out of my house? Because I can do what like people gonna have to come with the, they're gonna have to come with the
yeah. But that I adopted that mentality because of Funky DL. Like when I went and stayed with him in London,
right?
And that's what he said. He was like, listen, fam, if this isn't covered, they're not paying this. I make X amount of dollars in my home. He's like, yo, like this is how much I make a day at home. Wow. So if I'm going to leave my home, I need to make more than this.
Right.
Otherwise, I can stay home. And when he said that to me, I was like, dog, say less. Listen, I adopted that mentality. We started our company, was it 2 months after me staying with him?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So much from that brother, man.
Wow.
Field trip.
Well, before we wrap up, the last question I have for you is, being a multi-talented artist such as yourself, right?
Thank you.
You teach, you are a sound engineer, you provide sound design, you produce, you DJ'd. If you could only choose one.
Oh man, music. I guess the music composition or music production. That's like what I came in. I really wanted to be like I guess the fourth member of the Ummah. Like I really was like, there's gonna be JD, Q-Tip, Alicia Heat, and me. And then of course Tribe disbanded like my sophomore year or freshman year Howard. And I was like, no, like you know what I mean? But yeah, I really love music. Even now, if we finish, like I get back to working for Vice, but I'm like scoring this new podcast they're doing based in hip hop in Korea. I'm like, how cool is that? Like, so but this is my day job. Like, so that would be the skill I would keep. I like engineering. I like doing sound design more for visual stuff now. That's been great too. But I think, with the one skill that got me into this was like we used to be making beats. Now I just say it's composing music or scoring. Like that's really where my heart's at. So that will be the one thing I gotta keep from all the other AKAs and things you add on to my name and my master's degree. You ain't taking that away, right? Because I put some money and some time into that shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Okay, thank you so much.
Appreciate you, brother.
Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule. We're so appreciative. So
no, thank you all for having me. And I'm not fronting. I think you all I love just hearing you all talk. Y'all got like the coolest voices. I've been saying that, like y'all know that. But I mean, on top of that, I think what you all are doing and what you all present as a unit, I think is just something that people should aspire to emulate. You know what I mean? So keep doing it.
Appreciate it, man.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, man. But yeah, so hey, everybody, we appreciate everyone for tuning in, whether you're watching on YouTube or Facebook Live. Thank you so much for tuning in. And definitely, if you have not liked, subscribe to the channel or any of those things, please make sure you do that. Obviously, if you're on your Facebook, go ahead, like that. And if you're on YouTube, go ahead, subscribe to the channel and like this video. But Kyle, once again, thank you. Make sure if you all haven't followed this brother as well, please do that too. But go ahead and get that social media info right about now. But yeah, please follow him on all platforms. And man, we're looking forward to seeing you in person at some point, brother.
Yeah, hopefully, I don't know, maybe next, not Blur. Well, I don't know. Who knows? But soon. Let's just say soon.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Soon and safe. I want to be
soon and safe.
That part.
Yeah, no doubt.
Awesome.
All right, but we will catch you all in 2 weeks. All right, and we'll be posting information about our next guest very soon. All right.
All
So,
right.
peace, everybody. Thanks for listening to Artistry, where art meets industry. This podcast has been brought to you by Substantial Art and Music. For more information, please visit www.subartmusic.com. You can also follow us on social media at subartmusic. We'll see you soon, but talk to you soon. Peace.